Hi everyone, this is Ginger with Gingerberry Creek, and today's tutorial is going to be cutting batting strips for your jelly roll rug or mat. And we're going, before I show you how to cut the strips, I want to discuss the type and brand of batting so that you kind of know what you're looking for when you're purchasing batting for your jelly roll rugs. So the first batting, and it's recommended in the pattern, is this organic cotton, 100% organic cotton pre-cut batting rolls. This is, like I said, what is recommended in the pattern. This one here is a 25-yard roll that is 2.5 inches wide. And so if you're going to use this type, then you'll need 2 rolls. So you'll need a total of 50 yards. So if you're buying this one, I would buy 2 of these for a typical jelly roll rug that runs 40 to 42 strips. So, and then there's this one. It's the same thing as the other one. It's 2.25 inches wide by 50 yards. And on this one, you'd only need 1. Both of them are organic cotton and 100%. There's no scrim or polypropylene in these. This is what's recommended. But if you want to save a little money and cut your own strips, you can, and here's what to look for. So this brand right here, I've used. It's called Warm and Natural, and it is cotton batting also with some scrim, which is a little bit of polyester or polypropylene in it. There are different types of batting with scrim. This particular one is 87.5% cotton and 12.5% polypropylene. Then I also have another type, which is this type. There's really not a big difference in them, how they are. But this one I bought on a big roll, and it's like 96 inches wide by 30 yards. It's a better pricing than buying some of the other smaller packages because you buy so much at a time. But this particular one is a Pelon brand, and it is 93% cotton and 7% scrim, or the polyester or polypropylene. So which one do you choose? So, and what in the world is scrim, as they put it? So scrim, let me bring this back in. Scrim, as I said, is a polyester or polypropylene that is needle punched into a layer of the cotton batting. And what it does is it is a stabilizer, and it also will help prevent the batting from shifting or stretching or bunching during the quilting process or the sewing process. So yes, you can use batting with scrim. How much scrim? Well, my suggestion is, since they recommend the 100% cotton with no scrim in it, that you try to find a batting that is got the lesser scrim in it. So like this Pelon is, I didn't find anything that had less than what this one did, which was it only had the 7%. And I have used this in rugs and it's worked up perfectly. I've also used this Warm and Natural and it's worked up really good. And if you'll notice on them, so here's one of the rolls again opened up, and you notice the thickness. This is considered low loft, or very low loft, and as I would say. Well, so are both of these, and that's really what you want to make sure that you're getting something that's thin, that is low loft, and will work with your fabric tool maker, because if it's too bulky, it's not going to work with that tool, and you may have a lot more difficulties when sewing. So what about polyester batting? Here's one that I have picked up. Well, could you use it in a rug? You could, but I would not recommend it. It's not recommended to use 100% polyester. So I personally would avoid this. Even though it's low loft, I just would stay away from it. And the reason why you want to stay away from the polyester is, as it is when you're sewing your jelly roll rug, you may start to find, especially after you've made your fabric tube and now you're actually sewing it together, putting the tube together as one big rug, you have to watch with the cupping or the waviness of a rug if you're pushing or pulling. Well, if you're using the 100% polyester, that just makes it a lot worse. So it will have a tendency to cause curling or waves in your rug, even more so than when you're using the cotton batting. So I would avoid any 100% polyester batting for your rugs. I would stick with either the pre-cut rolls, or I would stick with one of these type of brands that has a minimal amount of scrim in it as possible. All right, so how do you tell which side is the scrim? That needle punched layer. So if I were to open this up, and one side is a little more rough texture. One side has the little bumps and, as they call, pilling on it. So this would be the side that is your scrim, that layer that helps stabilize the batting for sewing and quilting. So, and a lot of people like to put the scrim part against like the back of their quilts, and then quilt the other side here. So in making a jelly roll rug, I don't really think it's going to matter. So you just pick the side that you want to use against the fabric or whatever, and just go with it, because it's really not going to make a difference. So, all right. So now you know a little bit about the batting, and if you can or cannot use batting that has scrim, I would say yes, you can use batting that has scrim in it. Just keep it at a minimum at all, as best as you can, whatever you can find. The bigger the rolls that you can buy, so like if you can get the bigger roll and store it, the 30-yard rolls, you're going to have a better pricing for your batting. So batting like this, where I'm cutting my own strip, compared to the batting that is the pre-cut batting, you're going to save yourself a good amount of money in the supplies here. So this is definitely cheaper to cut at your own strips than buying these particular types of rolls. So, but this is very convenient. It's already done. It's on a roll. All you have to do is open it up and take off. So, you know, it has its advantages too. It's really going to come down to personal preference. So, all right, so let's get to cutting your own strips. For me, actually, no, let's back up. We need to figure out how much batting we need for our jelly roll rug. So here I've done this little, I've kind of put it all out here for you, written it out, and I'm going to go over the steps. So how do you calculate the number of batting strips you need, or actually the yardage that you're going to need when you're buying, you know, your supplies for your jelly roll rug? So here's what you're going to need to do. First, you know, if you have a typical jelly roll that you've already purchased that's pre-cut, it usually has 40 to 42 strips. So if you purchase one that had 40 strips, then what you're going to need to do is take the number of fabric strips within that roll, and you're going to times it by how long those strips are. So if you had a 40 strip roll and they each were 44 inches, you'd take 40 times 44 would give you a total length of 1,760 inches. If you had a 42 strip roll, but they were only 43 inches long, then your amount would be 1,806 inches. So for my project, I have 40 strips and they're all 44 inches. So this is my total length. So then the next step would to take that total length and divide it by the length of my batting. So my batting on my roll is 96 inches. So I'm going to take my total length, which is the 1,760 inches, and I'm going to divide that by 96 inches, the width of my batting, or the length of my batting strips. That gives me the number of strips that I'm going to need for this project. So I'm going to need 18.33 strips. Well, instead of working in halves or any of that, I'm just going to round up to 19 strips. And so now I need to know, okay, so now I know how many strips I need, but I need to know what is the yardage. How does that convert into yards? So I will now go to my next step, and I'm going to take that number of batting strips and times it by the batting width, or how wide I'm going to cut. In that previous 42 strips by 33 inches, we got this number. So in the next step, our 1,806 divided by 60 inches, if you were using this particular one, this warm and natural, is only 60 inches wide or long. By the time you cut your strips, that's the length of each strip. So then you would divide it by 60, and out of this batting, I would need 30.10 strips. Again, to make it easy, I'm just going to round up. So in the next step, we're trying to figure out how much batting or yardage we need. So in my previous 40 strips, I came up with that I need a total of 19 strips. So I'm rounding up. So here's my 19 strips times, and I'm going to cut mine at 2¼ inches wide. So that would be 2.25 inches wide. And that gives me a total of 42.75 inches that I'm going to need for this project. If I were doing the other one, and I needed 31 strips, but I want to cut them at 2.5 inches wide so it covers the whole strip of the fabric, then I would need a total of 77.50 inches. All right, so now let's take this number and convert it into yardage. So we know we need this much in inches, but we want to know exactly how many yards. So now you're going to take your total width and you're going to divide it by the 1 yard, which is 36 inches. So for my original 19 strips, which is the 42.75 inches, and I divide that by 36 inches, which is equal to 1 yard, that gives me 1.1875 yards. If I do the other one, where I'm doing 31 strips, but I'm cutting them 2.5 inches wide, and I need 77.50 inches, then I would take that number, divide it by the 36 inches, and it gives me 2.15 yards. So now you can round up, here I would round up to probably 1.25. And here I would also round up and make it 2.25 yards. So that would be how you're going to figure out how much yardage and how many strips you're going to need for your jelly roll rug, just depending on if you're doing the typical jelly roll, which is 40 to 42 strips. So with that, let's move to cutting our strips. So you're going to need your cutting mat, which is this right back here. You're also going to need your rotary cutter, which is right here, and then some sort of ruler. It can be this style, or you could use the Creative Cuts one, which has the slots in it, where you put your rotary cutter into the slot and then cut. And you can usually cut, depending on how big the ruler is, you could cut several strips out of it before having to adjust everything. So either one is good. But so for this one, I'm using the 60-inch wide one. So if I were doing it completely like that, I would need those 31 strips, and having that little extra is always good, just in case you come across a hole or a spot in your batting that you have to cut out. You can cut it out, but you don't have to cut any more strips. So what you need to do is go ahead and get your batting ready, fold it however you need to fold it. If you want it just the 2 layers, then fold it so that it's 2 layers together and your ruler goes completely across it. That's the best way. Or you can even double it up like I have it right here, and see if, hopefully, if you have a new blade in your rotary cutter, then it'll go through it with no problem. So the first thing I need to do is, so I've got it folded, I'm ready to cut. I'm just going to line it up on one of my solid lines on my table here. So, and this folded edge, I personally like to cut starting at the folded edge. This edge here is where the 2 layers come together. And sometimes it can get caught up when you're using your rotary cutter. So for me, I just like this folded edge. I think it cuts a little bit smoother. So I'm going to line it, the bottom fold, on one of my solid lines. And I'm going to come over across one of my vertical solid lines. These boulder lines here are my 1-inch marks. So I'm going to line the bottom up on one solid line horizontally and have an edge slightly over one of my solid vertical lines here. And I'm just going to kind of smooth it out, make sure it's good. And now I'm going to bring in my ruler and I'm going to line it up with my solid vertical line so that I can start with a fresh, clean end. And I'm just going to make the cut and then just get rid of the excess. So then what we're going to do is I'm doing 2 1/4 inches because I personally like having that little bit of fabric on both sides, which I'll show you after I make this cut. So you would measure over your 2 1/4 inches. And on my ruler, I have these lines that are every 1/4 inch. So I can set this line on my 1/2 inch and then my edge is the 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm measuring over 2 1/2, placing my line on that line in my ruler on the 1/2 inch. I'm adjusting over here as well, aligning it. Once I have it in place, I'm just going to press down on my ruler and then I'm going to make my cut. And there is my strip. So then if I'm doing this particular batting, I would need 31 strips. So I would just continue cutting them. So I would measure 2 1/4. I'm placing that first line on my ruler on my 1/2 inch past and making sure it's up at the top the same way. And then I'm gonna press down and then cut. So I would continue to do this until I have all my strips cut and ready. But what you might want to do, I mean, if you like them at 2 1/2, then that's the way I would cut them, 2 1/2 inches wide if you like it across the whole strip. So here's one of my strips that I previously cut. I'm going to just open it up and I'm going to open up my batting. And I want to make sure that my cut is going to fit. And it looks like it will. So here's my 2 1/4 inch cut batting. I have a little bit on each side, which I like. So, and then this would go into my fabric tube when I'm go to sew the fabric tube. I'd use that tool. So this is how you would choose your batting and how to cut the strips. You would just continue. I've already cut all the ones I need for our next strip, our next jelly roll rug. So all my strips are cut, ready to go. And so next up for the video is going to be how to sew all of these little strips together. And then the next step from there. So anyway, that is how you cut your own batting for a jelly roll rug and what type to choose. I hope that this has been very helpful for you. And please like and share the video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye.